All right, we're back. We're racing. Melbourne. First race is done. Colin's already drinking. Um, Obviously, we know exactly what's going to happen for the rest of the season after that one. First race tells everything, especially in the wet. Highly predictable.
Always.
Feel so good about everything now.
I, 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 but like honestly, that's probably one of the best season openers I've seen in.
That was good.
It was a
Yeah,
great
it was
race.
definitely a good race. It felt like mid-season chaos already again. It's like, sweet. We were picked right back up.
Yeah, I mean, like the first was it like the first like 4 or 5 laps where they're like kind of cleaning it up. You're like, are we getting started? And then after that, it was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to get the rookies out of there for a minute. Let the race actually happen.
R.I.P.
Let's start there since we'll start before the race started. Isaac Hadjar just off. Didn't even start. Then crying. Then Hamilton's dad comforts him. Like,
I
fuck.
gotta, yeah. There was so much going on there. Like
Talk to him back.
dude, I wonder, yeah, how much did I think his name's Anthony Hamilton? How
Yeah,
much did he like pull that dude back from just like, as you say, like toaster in the bathtub? Like,
exactly.
but
Yeah,
then he also simultaneously made it worse because then Helmut Marko is like, you've like really this is like that. I mean, he
yeah.
just tore him. Like, it's so bad already. It's race one, and he's already like just like my driver's an embarrassment.
Dude, I'm all for shit talking, but
Oh,
what is Marco even doing there? Like, he's such an asshole, really. He's just out there making outlandish claims, telling everyone drivers are embarrassments and they're B class and C class, and it's like, really, Lawson was probably the worst rookie.
oh god.
In a
I mean,
lot
I
of
have a whole.
sense.
We can
We'll
get
get
into
there.
that one too, but no,
Yeah,
I'm with you,
sure.
man. Like, it is interesting. Like, Helmet is. He's clearly a legend. He clearly knows what he's doing. The guy's got. I mean, God only knows the shit he's seen, or at least
Yeah,
half seen,
been there for
with that
150
half fake
years.
eye. Yeah. But the point being is like, you think somewhere along the way, like especially after like the Christian Horner stuff, like Red Bull would be like, tell him to shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
Like we cannot have like him. Like we just like he can literally go talk to anyone else, but do not talk to media. Like I don't care. Like go talk to the fucking mechanics. Like
yeah.
whatever.
Go talk
Go
to
talk.
Joe's.
Yeah,
Joe's
exactly. Talk
nothing. Just stay in
right.
the corner with him.
You can have meetings with Lawrence Stroll, talk all sorts of shit. We
Yeah.
don't care. Like, but yeah, yeah, that was a little savage, and that was the other part too. Like, I'm a little bit like F1. Like, okay, like it was clear he was like upset and crying.
Yeah, they're just like,
They're like, get this. This is amazing.
Drive to Survive is gonna be lit.
Yeah. Oh God. All right. Like you're just like, Jesus Christ, you
Yeah,
guys
I
are
was starting to
really.
feel bad for him. At first, it's like, oh, fair. And then it's just like, oh, wow, they're still showing. Wow, he's still going. Wow, okay. No, like, I feel bad for the kid. He's a young kid and he acts very young. Like he seems like more of a young, naive, just nice kind of guy.
Oh yeah.
And dude, I'm sure he hasn't really driven an F1 car in the wet. Most of those rookies hadn't.
Well, didn't they change
And
the
then you're,
compounds too? So
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
yeah. So
yep.
even
And
worse.
then, first race, just barely twitched the throttle and he's off. Like, that sucks. I'd probably be crying too, dude. And he's on Red Bull family, which is just notorious for, he's probably like, oh, I'm fired. This is it. Ricardo's coming back from my seat or something.
Dude, yeah, I mean, we always talk about like how much like doing how much pressure's on him, but like God only knows. I mean, if you're in any bit of the Red Bull family, it's not a family.
No,
It's like I mean, like
it's a business.
it very much, and like I mean, who knows like what pressure right has been put on him, and yeah, he saw Ricardo. I mean, so I'm looking up. Yeah, he's 20. But yeah, I agree with you. He's a very like young
Yeah.
20. So it's like Yeah. Oh man. No, that was really savage. I felt terrible for him. Doing too.
Yeah,
Like the guy's
yeah,
already got the world against him. He's got all of South America like just rooting for his demise. Um I like it's that's like got to be just like a horrible place to
yeah,
be. Like
yeah. And I think we've talked about it that that kind of pressure. I get it, but that's not really how you develop a rookie. And when you look at all of the different rookies, Behrman had just the most disastrous weekend ever. But he survived the race. He was one of two. So you can't, like, he did pretty well, all things considering. And then the other ones that have all this pressure, they're braking and they're crashing out of the race. And then, and I don't think Behrman's really got a whole lot of pressure. He's on Haas and they don't have drivers knocking at the door waiting to kick him out. And then
no.
Kimmy is the chosen one. So he doesn't, and Toto seems to be very like, hey, he just needs some time to get rolling. We're just going to see how this goes. And dude, he could not have done better. I mean, he drove a freaking amazing. I'm pretty sold on him after that.
Oh, I'm very impressed.
That was a
I
young Max Verstappen race.
that yeah.
That was impressive. But
It,
mentally, he's probably going to the race like, damn, okay, rainy race. I'm gonna go out, do my thing, see what happens. We got next weekend. I'll do our, Mercedes is always good at strategy. Well, I got a good car. We'll see what goes on. Everyone else is like, I have to do my best. Or I'm out of the seat. Like, fuck. And
yeah.
they crashed out.
I mean, it's really crazy. I'll never pass up a moment to rip Toto a new one, but I will say, like, he does seem, and they always talked about this when Mercedes was like unbearably unbeatable. Basically, they always have kind of had the like, hey, it's cool to fail.
Yeah.
Like, as long as you're basically like kind of pushing and we can see like you're pushing in the right direction, like engineers, whatever, like they always kind of made it clear, like your job does not depend upon this. Whereas like
Right.
Ferrari has always been like relentlessly like you fuck up, like you're out the door.
Yeah.
And I I still like kind of question a lot of things with Toto, but it's like it makes me want, and this isn't like we're not even talking about Kimmy and his talent at this point, but it is like interesting. It makes me wonder kind of like what he has said to him to just
Mm-hmm.
be like, hey man, just go out and do what you do.
Yeah.
And it clearly worked because I mean, in that pass that he made, I guess he
Yeah.
did it twice.
Yeah. Yeah. A couple
Fucking
big one.
amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I would vote those as like the him and Piastri is like the passes of the race.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
So yeah, and yeah, to back to Behrman. I mean, it's that car looks awful.
Yeah. Haas is just terrible.
What the fuck? Anyway, yeah, really.
So bad.
Not that we're monetized, but I'm really pushing it. Anyways, the point being isn't with the swearing, but no, I mean that car is trash. So it's like the
Yeah.
fact that he survived and did what he did. I think he got last. I've had to pull up the results, but I mean, I hand it to him. The fact he finished, I think is fantastic. I think it's a huge
Yeah.
victory for him.
After he made, it was 12 laps of all of the weekend before that.
Right.
First lap out in FP1, couldn't get the car back for two. Second lap, he was out in FP3, and he made qualifying. 12 laps. First race of the year. He's had two races under his belt, but he's rookie.
But also
And
that
that's,
Ferrari and that Haas, like, there's a probably night and day difference. Like,
yeah, exactly. And again, in the wet and all that stuff. So, yeah, I think he did terribly, but he did a lot less terribly than everyone else in his position.
yeah.
And then
And it,
no, go ahead.
well, and then like kind of moving on the rookies, like Bortoletto, I can't even remember exactly. It kind of sucks to hear because he was doing like he qualifying crushed
Yeah,
it.
he was having a good weekend.
Yeah. So um it's funny. I have a very overall like positive feeling about all the rookies,
Yeah,
and that's only been reinforced. It's really interesting, and it kind of what was I listening to? I think it was something like for like tour riders, and they were basically talking about like oh no, it was actually like former World Cup downhill guys. It was like Needles was like
Mm.
talking about how he's like in Brendan Fairclough, and they basically were like, man, what all these guys have, these kids rather have available to them, like out the door.
Yeah.
He's like, it's insane. And he's like, I'm not saying that like they don't deserve it, but he's like, we had to go build all this, and like this
Yeah.
wasn't like readily available. Like a bike park didn't exist back then.
Right.
And and it just kind of shows, he's like, look, that's why they're coming out the gate so much faster. And it's,
Yep.
I feel the same way about these rookies. It's like whatever they have available to them, it's working. They're good.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. I mean, they've got multiple good paths in F1. They've got sim rigs that they can be in since they're 5 years old, and karts have gotten better. They have so much available to them, and just the media and everything too. You can, two idiots like us can have a good idea of what's going on in F1 just off of social media and the tiniest bit of digging. So yeah, you
yeah,
get someone who's actually interested. There's a lot more path. Um, yeah, it's like when we were kids. I remember like Dustin and I would, to go race downhill or something. It was, we spent half of our time jumping stairs on our downhill
right,
bikes because there's nothing else to
right,
ride. Or we'd go build some sketchy stuff out in the woods and like try not to die, and that was about
right.
it. Every once in a while, we could con the summer workers at Snowmass into giving us shuttle rides up to the top of, and do to actually do the national track. But it was just, unmowed grass, but it was better than nothing. And now you go up there any day of the week, ride a perfectly manicured bike park, and
Right.
there's hundreds of thousands of coaches, and there's online coaching, and there's online resources for how to get sponsored and follow a team and what to do and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
When I got on a factory team, I got my first strength training program, was do 100 sit-ups, 100 push-ups, and 100 pull-ups.
Right.
I was like, fucking cool, dude. What? I'm
But
130 pounds. That's not that hard.
yeah. Well, that exactly right. Like that's the thing, is like in the past you always were like wondering, you're like, what the hell are these guys doing?
Yeah.
What are these guys like, period? Like how are
Yeah.
they are they, what are they training? Are they doing this? Are they doing this? Now it's like it's laid out there, and it
Yeah. It's
really it
pretty locked in.
incentivized the highly motivated and the talented ones to really rise to the top.
Yeah.
It's really, and it's awesome, but
Yeah.
it also, I'm sure it means it's probably never been more cutthroat either.
Yeah. I was just going to say the depth of field in any sport is a lot gnarlier now. I mean, you truly right now, yeah, there's 6 rookies, but they're all really good. If you put them all in even cars, if you just stuck everyone in a McLaren or something, there'd be 20 of them that are going for the win.
Yeah.
They're all good. There's, well, maybe not Stroll.
No, he missed that altogether.
Yeah,
That
he's just daddy's cash.
yeah, he's too busy making his grilled cheese sandwiches in the middle of the night to like
Yeah.
even. And that, but like, I'm actually glad you brought that up. I mean, like, props to him for finishing when
I
he
was
gets.
just gonna say better than Ferrari. So
Yeah, which like, I'll turn you loose on that in a minute. But yeah, I mean, like, he got 6th, which is probably like, that's like one of his best finishes.
yeah,
I am like, it's unbelievable. I mean, he's always done pretty well in like wet condition races. He got that
yeah,
pole in Turkey, I think,
yeah,
in 2020. But yeah, he missed, I don't know, like he missed that fucking train. Like that guy did not, I don't know what it is with him, and like he just seems to have like no interest in like remedying like his like poor habits or anything. He's just like,
yeah. I'm just here. Talk about no stress about your seat. Doesn't even want it, but his dad owns the team.
right.
So complete opposite. There you go. Complete opposite end of the spectrum. A dude that doesn't have the talent, but knows he's got the seat, has zero stress on him. If he gets it past the fucking start line, it's a good race, and he gets 6th. Then you got
Yeah.
Liam Lawson, who I would argue is an incredibly talented driver in a good car, and he's Checo Part 2 all weekend.
So I have a lot of thoughts on this. I think it's incredibly. He's in like, I think he's probably in the worst spot in F1 right now,
Yeah, I
because I
agree.
think nobody wants to. You got, was it Zach Brown even, who was like, He shouldn't be in.
Yeah.
Yuki should be in the car. Okay,
Yeah.
so you got
After
that working
qualifying.
against you, right? You got people literally, and I think every comment I saw like on like Red Bull was like, and whatever the hell the other Racing Bulls team is, being like Yuki should be in the car, get Lawson out. Then they also got him being compared to Checo. So then also people are like, why'd you get Checo out?
Yeah.
Then it's also the pressure of like you're Max's teammate. And clearly that car, I mean, I think I saw something over the weekend that was like they stopped trying to make that a drivable car in like 2019.
Yeah.
And they haven't remedied any of it because Max is like, whatever, I
Yeah.
got
He
it.
can just
It's
drive through
fine.
it.
Right.
Yeah. And I was actually saw like a interview or something with Albon about it.
Mm.
And he was
Hmm.
basically like at the beginning of the season, the car is really hard to drive. It's very like front end dependent and super like quick and twitchy and nervous. And Lawson was saying the same thing. He's like, but the way Albon described it was basically like if you turn up your mouse speed on your computer all the way,
Right.
where you barely touch it, it's like, and then that's kind of what Lawson was saying too. And they say it kind of starts that way. And then over the season, it develops even more that way, just in setup and everything, because that's how Max likes it. And he is good enough to drive that. So the disparity between Max and his teammates gets worse and worse over the season because they're already struggling just to drive this car. And then it
Right.
goes farther the direction that they can't handle, but Max can figure it out.
Right.
So, yeah, and Max Verstappen, dude. He's nuts.
It's no, I mean it
He's
is. It's
way
like
on drugs.
it's insane. And it's like really funny because like like back to it's like you watch like the like Ferrari like F 2002, 2004, um the Red Bull of like 2011, was it the Mercedes W, whatever the one they had in 2020. Those cars looked like they were on rails. It looks
Yeah,
like no matter what you did, like the input was just like perfectly matched. Like they're not fighting the car.
yeah,
And I mean, who knows, maybe some of those were kind of a pain in the ass too, but I mean, to like see that car be what it is and knowing like basically everyone is just like, I don't know how, I mean, no one's like said it, but they're basically saying like, I don't know how he drives it.
yeah, yeah,
So then basically the only solution I see is Lawson goes back to racing bulls or whatever the hell it is.
yeah. V carb.
V car, yeah, exactly. Or what was it? The
Whatever.
Red Bull Light, Red Bull Sugar Free,
Yeah,
or
sugar free
something.
Red Bull. Yeah,
Um, and you bring Alonso in. That's literally like, I mean, I know, like let him finish out the season.
yeah,
Basically, like tell people like, hey, like good guy, good driver, everything. Like he deserves his chance. Like hopefully he doesn't get destroyed, because I think he's the only other driver who could basically tame that piece of shit,
yeah,
or or the whatever, not a piece of shit. And basically, like I think at that point too, Verstappen, he'll have 5 world champs because I think he'll still pull it together.
yeah,
Not, I mean, like I'm rooting for Lando, I'm rooting for Oscar, but the point being is like I still think he's the favorite. And at that point, I mean, I think Fernando, he would almost be like, let's do this.
yeah,
Like, and Fernando's probably the only other guy who, I mean, he's been given terrible car after another at Ferrari. They literally, I can't remember, it was like 2 or 3 seasons in a row. They gave him a car that both oversteered and understeered.
yeah,
So you just had to guess and just deal with it. And he like was dragging them onto podiums and
yeah,
like, so I think that's literally the only option those guys have, because unless Max leaves, they're not going to change how they develop the Red Bull.
yeah. Yeah, no, I could definitely see that. I could agree. Right?
If they're
Yeah,
if they're talking about bringing back V10s, then Fernando has a chance.
yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, for this year, obviously, that's not going to happen. Alonso's, but so yeah, I don't know. I'm not on the Lawson's a failure bandwagon yet by any means, but long term, it almost seems like. And I was just listening to the Red Flags podcast with Gunther. He's never scared to give an opinion. He was like, "Fucking Lawson sucks. It's out. Put Yuki in. They got it all wrong." Like he's fully on that train.
wow.
The part of that point that he had, though, that I do think is good is you've got Yuki, who has consistently beat every teammate. He's been the bridesmaid, just kind of sitting there this whole time. They don't have any
Right.
plans to go forward with him. He's just sort of there, but he's good.
Yeah.
Just give him the chance. Give him the car. Put Lawson back to V carb. Give him a season to develop with no pressure.
Right.
And then next year, let Yuki go where he wants. Give Yuki a good shot at a good season. Let him go if that's what you plan to do, anyways. And then put Lawson in there when he's got a season under his belt with no pressure, been able to develop, and maybe the 26 car they can get back on track to where two drivers can drive it.
Yeah.
That I could see. And if Lawson
That
stays,
makes too much sense.
yeah,
But
yeah, exactly. It's Gunther, he's got that German in him, so it makes good points.
yeah.
I just steal it.
Yeah, I mean, and that is like, it's very logical, and it makes me like, and free like P10 here once again. We barely make the points.
Yeah.
Did they put him in a? They put him in a Red Bull to like test.
Yeah.
Like,
I actually just watched the Drive Survive episode on all of this, so
oh, okay, perfect. I didn't get there
I'm like
yet.
peak educated here now, expert, Netflix certified. No, yeah. So after Silverstone, they put Lawson in the Red Bull.
Okay.
Brought Max at a Silverstone test. Brought Max out to just do a couple laps, put some laps on the board, let Max go home, and then put Lawson in and gave him like a couple laps. And that's where it all kind of started with putting him in the Red Bull, because he was less than 2/10 off of Max's lap time in the Red Bull. And his sector times were really good, and his feedback was right on point. So all of the engineers were like, damn, he's got this. And then in Mexico, once they had him in the V carb, and he just bullied the shit out of Checo. At least what Netflix made it seem like was that what's his nuts? Team principal. Why am I blanking?
Oh, Horner,
Horner.
the Horn Dog.
Yeah. It seemed like Horner was like, yeah, this is it. But,
Yeah, he's like, that's the spirit I like.
yeah, he's cutthroat. He's got the fire, and he's got gas on the fire. Like, let's go. I need that.
He's young, dumb, full of cum.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's kind of seems like what did it for Lawson, but and I don't know. He had all the pressure on him then too, because he didn't have a seat. So again, this is first race. We're making assumptions off of a first race, a rainy race, where a Sauber was in seventh ahead of Ferraris too. So
yeah,
but it is Hulk. That's what he does. So
that well, right. No, I mean, I completely agree with all that. And I feel terrible because it's also kind of like now this like just kind of put that much more pressure on him.
Yeah.
Where you're also like, dude, this guy's got. I'm with you. I think in what China, hopefully I should know what's the next race. Whatever. The point being is like it. I think like it's a. I don't want to call it like a little bit more of a straightforward track, but I think like the weather. I haven't seen what the weather forecast looks like. It's a track they've been to for years. That was where Red Bull got their first win. Not that this is anything remotely similar to that Red Bull car, but the point being is like I have faith in him. It's also kind of one of those things where you're like, man, you got the worst draw of like you got the worst luck for this first race, like, and you got to like completely reset. And that's like, I mean, they talked about how mentally like kind of strong he was and mature, I think is what they used, and it's like hopefully he can bounce back because he's that sucks. It's like that's going to be a real.
I think the one thing that softened the blow for all of the rookies a lot was the rookie leader Alonso also crashed. I think he just wanted to be with his pack. Like, hey guys, I'm here. I'm out too. And he didn't.
I'm with you guys. I'm with you guys. We're one and the same.
Exactly. We're all rookies together. So he went out, and Sainz went out too. Sainz also first race in a new car, so I'm sure it drives a whole lot different than a Ferrari. You get it a wreck. He made a mistake, so it wasn't just rookies having these issues. It was also two of the most experienced and best drivers on the grid. also
Yeah.
did the same thing. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you can't really, again, you can't put a whole lot of stake into
Uh,
this, what happened, especially in the back half of the field.
Oh yeah, no, and I think I would say more the only downside the rookies have is to them this is their world. They don't have
Yeah.
all these years. Sainz and Alonso. Alonso's like I've seen some shit. You know what I mean? Like I mean
Yeah.
like the amount of like the season openers like he's had, like especially like
Yeah.
with that like McLaren Honda and everything, like he's like, trust me, that first race doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Um so you just like kind of hope those guys can reset,
Yeah.
and hopefully Helmet Marco is only saying the nicest things to Lawson.
Yeah.
I mean,
Keep him on his leash or something.
oh god.
Well, and then Science pulled the freaking class act team move of the century and went back to the pit wall and started working strategy with him and made the strategy call that let Albon get all the way up there. That is insane.
It,
That shows,
awesome.
yeah. And again, like kind of like you were saying with Mercedes being a team that's okay with failure, Vowels very much seemed to have that mentality last year. Like, hey, wreck as many cars as you want. I don't care. Let's figure out why they suck.
Right.
And we'll start this next year. And they don't have expectations this year. They have hopes, but science is like, you're not going to see me up front. It is what it
Right.
is. I think we could.
I think so too.
I think he's undershooting that, but it just created that environment again where Sainz goes out first race with Williams, sucks, just hops back in, makes this brilliant strategy call, and gets his teammate up there. Like, dude, that's huge.
It's
That's awesome.
amazing. Yeah. And just like having that extra set of eyes and like being able, because like, you know, because they always are relying on like one driver over another. It's kind of like when they like one guy
Yeah,
like Checo would go, you know, be 18th, and they're like, okay, let's put him on this tire just so
yeah,
we can get the feedback to Max. So like the fact that he was hanging in there on the pit wall and like kind of like using his eyes, his experience of what he could, it's like that's incredible. Like
yeah,
like my hat, I'm always like super impressed with him. Like it's
yeah,
just like it's really um it's like some guys you can like tell like with like their motivations, like kind of how it comes across and genuine.
yeah,
And sometimes I like get fooled, and I'm sure like there's stuff like I'll hear Hamilton say stuff and I'm just like, oh Jesus. But you know, and I'm sure he is, well, whatever, doesn't matter. But like
yeah,
with science and that attitude like that, you're like, dude, you are a team player. Like that guy
yeah.
is like totally there to like facilitate that team moving forward, because he could also just be sitting,
Dude,
I
he could
mean,
be such a salty bitch right now.
exactly. Right.
This is the way that it ended with Ferrari and just getting the shaft and then getting stuck. He could be just so salty and just
Yeah.
crash his car and walk off. Fuck you guys.
Right. And
This sucks.
who would blame him?
Yeah, no one.
Right.
So
So
yeah, no, that's definitely cool on him. Maybe Ferrari will offer him a job as a strategist.
okay, you got go for it, man. You and
I
I
mean,
were talking shit about them before the race started, and I was like, oh.
I just don't even know. I think like the thing with them is the hype train was so big this winter, and that you never live up to that, almost never. And they just did the usual crap in the race. I honestly don't even really know what calls they made that were so bad. I didn't pay attention because they were just fucking around 8th, 9th, 10th. I didn't care. Then all of a sudden they're in the lead and I'm like, whoa, weird, what's going on? And then all of a sudden they're right back down there. Like, oh well, they missed that because they left them out there while everyone else came in and they're slipping around the track. But the radios were just that, I think, just shows you where they're at. There's still Lewis K1 available. Yep. Hey, K1's still available. If I can leave me alone. I think Lewis sounded so like he was going to drop a toaster into his car and let it go. Leclerc could have because of that water,
Yeah,
the
that
water in his
bathtub.
seat, which was probably water. I heard that, I was like, what the fuck? Leclerc's just in the car like, what? Really? What the
Yeah.
fuck are you talking about? Let's add that one to the word of wisdom. You guys are idiots.
I that was astounding.
That was amazing.
I and you know what? Some of the hype train, even I don't want to say I caught it because
Yeah.
I caught it hard when back in 20, well, like when Seb and Raikkonen were there,
Yeah.
because it looked like every year they were making progress, and like I was like, oh, these are like Kimmy favorite driver, Seb I was always a fan,
Yeah.
and I was like, dude, they're doing this, and it sort of felt kind of also after like last year that they were once again first race, but holy shit,
Yeah.
when the engineer's like, you got the overtake available, and he's just like, leave me to it, and they like he just keeps saying it. Mind you, this is like the same guy that like I'm pretty sure it was Seb's engineer when he was in Spain, and he's like, hey, like, you know, do you want me to pit? Do you want me to pit? And they're like, what do you think about staying out? And he's like, what the I just asked you. Like, you know, like um and I, I don't know how these guys like you're like I mean it really is like you and I talked about, it's like that like Lauda quote from Rush where it's like, you have these nice facilities, you've won all these races, and this is how you act. Like, this is what the hell is going on? Like,
Yeah, it's just it's baffling because it's been how many years of them being known for terrible strategy calls. It's not like the same people are there making. They have different staff, like different strategists. They have a new team principal, relatively new, who is good. Like Fred's awesome. They have
and
good
resoundingly,
people, and
everybody
they
says
just
he's
keep
awesome.
yeah, and they just keep doing the same thing with all new people. It's like how what is it about this red car that you
Didn't they
just
fire?
can forget everything?
Well, didn't they fire the strategy guy from 22?
I thought so.
I thought so too, because like it was.
Yeah,
I mean, we haven't
yeah,
reached
that
that
was a
level
bad
yet.
year.
That was right,
Yeah,
and they arguably could have won that championship.
yeah,
Um, yeah, it's um, I, yeah, I don't know. I really don't understand it. I mean, it's like kind of funny because it was like the first episode you and I had when we were like, just wait till Lewis gets like this like bad strategy,
yeah,
and you like also to completely back that up. I mean, it's like I'm curious where he's also gonna be, like what his feedback is gonna be to the team, because the fact is it's like you look at what Mercedes did. They kept cool and collected, and were like, oh,
mhm,
now's the time to pit,
yeah,
and they called it right. They didn't like jerk those guys around. They were just like, hey, now's the time to do this. And look at them. I mean, was it George third, Kimmy fourth?
yeah,
And even when they thought that they maybe screwed up the pit stop, they didn't got it overturned. It was awesome. But the point being is
yeah,
like, I do not understand, for all the money, all the prestige. Like, if you think of F1, you think of Ferrari.
yeah,
How are they this bad? I don't get it. And
yeah,
it's yeah, and like Fred Vasseur, like everyone resoundingly is like, this is the guy that could turn it around, and yet
yeah. It's the same thing.
and like that was the funny part too, because like remember you and I were talking about how I think you sent me that post where it was like, oh, Ferrari took the wet weather setup for qualifying,
Yeah,
because qualifying was bad
yeah. It was really bad.
for the. I mean, but it was like for them, like supposedly having this banger of a car, and like Lando's like, oh, they were sandbagging, and you look, they never really.
Yeah, they couldn't pass anybody.
They sure shit. They sure shit can't pass as an F1 team either.
Yeah, yeah. They got who is Hamilton was stuck behind. Was it
Just
Albon for a long time?
yeah, is
And
Albon,
then
and
Albon
then
made a good strategy call, and Ferrari didn't. And look what happened.
and the best part too is then like Yuki was in like no man's land,
Dude, I was so
and
bummed for
just
Yuki.
I
Oh.
I know,
But so there again, the point on all everyone hating on Lawson. Yuki qualified fifth,
dude.
and he ended up in 12th. So
Yeah,
he may not be the guy. He
yeah,
was really
yeah,
fast a lap, but he does that a lot too.
yeah. No, I mean, and like, look, man, like I love Yuki, and I completely agree. It's um his consistency kind of to hold it together and kind of like
Yeah.
pull out those results. He's never really seemed, he's like 50-50.
Yeah.
Like I don't think you can really like fully rely on him to like pull out the banger of a
Yeah.
result. Whereas like that Kimi Antonelli looks like he's got that talent, like
Yeah. Yeah. He's
16th
got
to
that car feel, and yeah, pulling some good saves and passes, and yeah, I'm impressed with that kid.
very, yeah, yeah. Because then he's, I guess was it because he passed? I think it was Hulk. I think he passed him once, spun, then got back out, and then did the pass again in the exact same spot,
Yeah.
like pulled it off twice, and you're just like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like that is awesome. Like
Yeah.
good for you, man.
Yeah. That was good. And
But
then I don't know. You got the Max wet race, shitty car, got it up there. McLaren's for a second. Oh, I'm not gonna lie. This is what proved to me that I am more of a Piastri fan than a Lando fan. I like them both. I like the team. When they went off the track, I thought it was Lando in the grass, and I was laughing my ass off. I was like, he just blew it again. And then I realized it was Oscar, and I was like, no.
like, oh, really?
Yeah. I was dying because I thought I saw the yellow helmet, and I was like, ah! And then wasn't so funny. I was super bummed. A little salty for the rest of the race.
I know.
As much as I like Lando, I don't know. It's
You know what? I like him too, but like I'm kind of with you. I'm a little bit more neutral on him than I find because when he gets in the lead, I'm almost more hoping he just doesn't mess it up. Whereas
yeah,
like Oscar, like I'm sort of like I get like anxious, like oh dude, this is it,
yeah.
and it's like oh okay, I am a bigger yeah I'm with you, like I'm a bigger Oscar fan, and
Well, and for
goddamn that was
Oscar to
heartbreaking.
yeah, and then for him to he was showing out on the leaderboard. He's beached out there, and he didn't quit, didn't get out of the car, and figured out how to back that thing back out of there and get going, and then get back into the points ahead of Hamilton. Like
I did
that was cool. That shows where
loved
Oscar's at. He
yes
had any other driver, I think, would have just got out of the car and be like, "Oh, I'm beached."
right
You know,
or
Stroll wouldn't even let the car stop; he'd be out
he
of there.
he'd be like phoning in his like Tim Hortons. He's like,
Yeah,
"Oh, I need my donuts," or, uh, dude, no, I completely agree. The way he kept that together and that pass that he made on Hamilton,
it was
holy
nuts.
shit,
Yeah,
that was awesome. I
yeah,
like it was, dude. That yeah, it was. And yeah, you got lucky with the safety car, like whatever, but like
yeah,
dude, that was incredible. Like, and the fact, like, just him like pulling it back, getting ninth. Like, I mean, that was, yeah. I'm really bummed to see that happen. In some ways, I don't know. I don't know if it makes it better or worse because it's like now there's that point deficit,
yeah.
so
But
maybe it kind of moves that. Well, I was gonna say it might be
oh,
better, and it moves a little bit of the pressure like the team's like look if he wants to go get a win like Lando you're still going to be like points leader
yeah,
whatever I don't that you could kind of push a little bit of that pressure with them as
yeah,
teammates further down the line which is a good thing
yeah,
because also as we saw like in back to 22 it's like what was it Leclerc had like a 40-point lead over Verstappen and it didn't hold.
yeah. I mean, again, first race, that points deficit
It's nothing.
doesn't mean shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're pretty likely to end up out of the points or DNF one race at least. I mean, even Max DNF'd a race last year.
Yeah.
So
And like one of those sprint races goes wrong and
yeah, exactly. Something's gonna
yeah.
happen, so that's not a big deal. But what did you think of the team orders when he was getting real close? And they're like, "Oh, just back off." And then once he backed off, they're like, "Oh, go ahead and race." Like I get the point that they were wanted to wait for the track to dry out so they could battle safely. That's probably reasonable. But that just seemed the way it all seemed. It was like they're letting him race when he's finally there in like striking distance. Like, hey, hold your position. the fuck? Then he backs off. They're like, oh, race. And then he catches up. And then Lando goes off the track and he just like kind of follows him. I'm blaming Lando for all of that.
It's those goddamn Brits. It makes no sense. I mean, like what you said does make sense. But I think the thing is, like, those guys were holding it together so well up until that moment.
Yeah.
I would almost argue that what
Break
the
his
hell do I know?
focus.
But yeah, no, exactly. Like, why are don't mess with these guys a little bit?
Yeah.
And like, I don't think it's helping either because I think you could even argue like it's not helping Lando because then now he's kind of sitting there like watching the mirror a little bit, maybe not watching where the
Yeah.
track is not
Now he's
super
got
high.
Verstappen on his ass. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't get it. I think those
Well,
guys
it's,
are.
yeah,
Go
like
ahead.
you have to assume that neither driver wants to crash into each other and take them out of the race. So it's like pretty obvious.
Right.
Hey, I'm probably not going to go try to make a super aggressive move and take us both out of the race because then
Right.
everyone loses. Like, if anything might come on the radio, just like battle, but with caution, it's wet.
Right.
Just a little something, baby. I don't even think they need that. I think you just let them go. They're adults ish, but they're smart. Neither one of them want to wreck the cars and be done. So
Well, and
it seems unnecessary.
oh, yeah, absolutely. Because also, like, you look at last time well, I guess it happened with Verstappen and Ricardo, but that was built up over a while. That was them instituting kind of like not really team orders, but it was like the team getting involved or maybe not getting
Yeah.
involved, like whatever. But then it was also Hamilton and Rosberg. That was because those guys like that was for seasons and years of like
Yeah.
those two like having issues. Like it's, anyways. Yeah, I don't get it. I think they're only making it worse. I think
And
this is on.
right. And like Lando and Oscar have never. Oscar made an aggressive move in Monza last year, but it
Right.
wasn't dirty. Wasn't They didn't touch, like, it was fine. And
Yeah.
they haven't ever had an issue. They've been super friendly and given each other positions back and done all this. Like, they don't have a history of crashing into each other. So why would you just let it go?
Yeah.
It's not a problem until it is. And you telling him don't do that is not going to make him not do that.
Yeah.
He's just going to be sitting in the cockpit a little bit pissed because he's put in all this work. It's kind of like the Senna at Monaco that year, where he's just like running away. And as soon as they're in the radio, slow down. It broke his focus and then he crashed. If you
Right.
just left him alone, he would have been fine.
Yeah.
Never would have crashed.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you get in that spot, you can't make a mistake. You just can't.
It's and it's so it makes me curious like what is actually being said when they have like talk about like the papaya rules or
Yeah.
whatever the hell that is, because you're kind of like it's sort of like, okay, if you keep reaffirming like, oh yeah, like we'll let him race,
Yeah.
and then you get on the radio and it's like, because also, I mean, maybe they did, I can't remember fully, but it's like even them just being like, guys, like, hey, hold off until traffic's clear, like keep whatever,
Yeah.
keep it clean
Yeah.
or whatever.
Just
They
keep
didn't
it clean.
even Right. They didn't even say that. And it's like, or they could have even just been like, hey, the track's still slick while you guys are overtaking the blue flag cars.
Yeah.
Completely different situation. I don't really, I just like, and it kind of goes to show this is where like I still kind of like am always going to bank on Max, even though like I want to see McLaren win the constructors again. I'd love to see Lando
Yeah.
or Oscar win the, kind of steal the crown from Max. Just keep it interesting. The fact that like they're kind of getting tripped up on race one over this, it's not a good sign.
No.
And it's, we're not even there yet to any point where things are really going to be tense or crazy. Like, it's like, there's a lot coming down. Right. Exactly. So it's just like, I don't understand it. I think it was really stupid. And then all you've really done now is kind of just rattle the drivers. And I'm sure Oscar's also kind of thinking a little bit in the back of his mind, like, if like he needs to give like Matt or Lando a tow at some point, be like, why? because you
Yeah.
guys are, he gets in the lead, you guys, and even if I'm faster, you're not going to let me pass him.
Yeah.
Um, I would be
Yeah.
thinking that.
I think all it really does is build a little animosity with Oscar because he seems to be the one, except for Budapest. Lando was on the short end of that gaslighting stick, but it's Oscar's usually the faster guy getting told to hold or
Yeah.
something. And Lando's just the golden boy. Like he's the chosen one. He's the one that everyone. And I think Oscar's just kind of logging all of this stuff. Like, all right, I'll slow down.
Yeah.
All right, I'll do this. All right. And then there's going to be a day where he just blows Lando's doors off and dominates himself and doesn't have to do anything dirty. He's just going to flat out drive Lando so bad that I think it'll break Lando.
Yeah. Because
And
keep
then
in
he'll be
mind
the guy.
also, I 100% agree. Because keep in mind who Oscar's manager is. It's Mark Webber.
Mark Webber. Yep. So
They're
he's
the
not going to let that happen.
no.
And I think that is the whole reason they're on this we have two number one drivers bullshit is because they
Yes.
got into it thinking Oscar was going to be the number two. And then Weber's like, absolutely not. And then Oscar is actually at least as fast as Lando and probably more mentally sound. So now they're like just doing anything they can to not say we have a one and two, but they're going to have to because
Right.
look at every team who's ever dominated. You get Ferrari with Schumacher, Red Bull with Vettel, Mercedes with Hamilton, Red Bull with Max. There's always a number one and a number two. You
Yeah.
cannot have two number one guys and just like kind of wishy washy. We'll see who goes. But I don't think they've got themselves into a really tough situation with that.
Yeah. Well, and that's why people keep bringing up the whole like Rosberg and Hamilton
Mm-hmm.
thing. Um, and I think, and it was like kind of back to your point, especially, yeah, like Weber. I mean, that's, he wasn't able to break Seb, but he sent the message plenty of times. It was that Silverstone race, not bad for a number two driver. I mean,
Yeah.
and like Weber he made it clear. Like he was
Yeah.
like, look, I know what you guys are doing. And it was like, I think it was, Malaysia, the multi 21 thing where he's like standing on the podium and he's like, look, Seb's going to be protected as always. And like, I'll get in trouble. Like, he's like, basically like, I'm going to get yelled at after this. Seb's going to be protected because he's the golden boy.
Yeah.
And like, you can see Helmut Marko and Christian Horner like sitting there beneath the podium and they're like, yeah.
Yep.
Like, I mean, that was the whole thing. So no, I mean, I'm sure Weber is in Zach Brown's ear constantly. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Let him drive. Like, you know what? We put it in his contract. We did this. Like, so it's, and Weber's also talking to Oscar, being like, any moment like this, don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't put yourself in that position.
Yeah. And now Oscar's on a big contract till 2028 and Lando's on till 27.
And I bet you within that contract, I'm totally just pulling this out of my ass. I bet you Weber, but I mean, like, honestly though, like I know enough about like things like this. I bet you Weber put something in there that like if he disobeys team orders or something like that, like he will get like a penalty, but like a fine or something. But
Yeah.
it's not going to result in him being like shit canned or suspended from the team.
Yeah. Yeah. Probably. Yeah. Absolutely. I bet there is something like that. I could almost see it being a Hamilton Rosberg and Piastri's Hamilton.
Yeah.
Because like maybe this is the year for Lando. Let's just assume to make things easy that new regulations, McLaren's still the fastest car.
Sure.
We'll just kind of make that assumption. Maybe Lando this year, but I could almost see more Oscar this year. Break that. I'm not the number two guy. He kind of has to pounce. Next year, Lando's pissed. Lando fights harder, gets it, and then Oscar never lets it happen again.
Yeah.
I could totally see that.
Yeah, because it was. I mean, and granted, we never know because Rosberg like retired, but I do feel like I've never been particularly like a big Hamilton fan, but I do feel like we saw a different Hamilton after that Rosberg got that championship in 2016.
Yeah.
I think he he was like, oh, like I have to be ruthless, and like
Yeah.
there's no gifts, there's no nothing. Like kind of prior to that, he'd win a world championship with 4 races to go. Lewis would never win a race.
Right.
We never saw that again. Like I think in some ways it's kind of like it's like sometimes people don't realize like you kind of have to take a step back in order to like make those 2 steps forward
Yeah.
effectively. And
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think like let's say Lando gets this one and say it's like through like legitimate means. Say it's like team orders doesn't even play a role, like whatever. I think Oscar's gonna figure it out, take it to heart, and basically come back and it's like, you know, next season opener he's winning by 20 seconds.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love it. I'm excited for it. I can't wait because I think that team's gonna really it's gonna be cutthroat. It's gonna be nasty. They're gonna have to figure out how to manage this. And I think it's um I never gave props to like Zach Brown. I like when I remember when they first put him in for him like taking that team, it was 10 years ago that they were basically I mean they were basically last. I mean they had Honda, the
Yeah.
engine sucked, but also the car sucked. Everything sucked. Like they weren't doing anything well, and he brought that team back. And I really didn't think he actually had it in him. And they're running with it, and the people, the personnel, like everyone's doing well. But
Zach Brown's an impressive,
he is.
like, again, I was watching some the DTS today, and I didn't know. I knew that he won Wheel of Fortune and bought his first go kart, and that's what got him into racing.
Which is amazing.
It,
Like just
from Wheel of Fortune to Constructors World Champions in F1, crazy. What's crazier is he failed out of high school. He does not have a high school degree. He was a troubled kid that caused problems. No education, which proves the point to me that the education is just
I was just
school's
gonna
joke.
say.
Like that is the he
Like
is
that's
like
why
the
he's
American.
winning, man. Don't you
Dude,
get it?
yeah, he thinks outside the box because he hasn't had the shit beat out of him to stay in line for 12 freaking years. He
No, but you're
never bought
exactly
into it,
right.
and
Yeah.
he like that is the American dream. Win Wheel of Fortune, buy a go kart, multi-millionaire that runs a. And last year they started off so bad,
Yes.
turned it around, became constructors champs, and started this year. Like that is insanely impressive. So
Yeah.
he might make some goofy calls and beat around the bush of number one, number two, number ones. Dude's not dumb.
Well, it kind of goes back to I think like you look at him. This is a guy who, and this is almost like sort of my criticism of like Toto at times. I think Toto is maybe a little bit too like regimented and thinks kind
It's
of in
German.
ways. Yeah. Oh, through and
Just
through.
classic German.
Oh yeah, and I think he's like sort of limited in some of like his like mindset. Like I think he tries to think like, oh, let me apply X algorithm to this problem and it'll solve it. And it's like
Yeah.
this isn't finance, this isn't engineering, this like and whereas like with Zach Brown, it's like the dude's been in the trenches. He's fought
Yeah.
his way up. I mean, I remember because he was like the marketing and sponsorship guy for F1 who loved McLaren.
Mm-hmm.
And I like I said, I remember when they hired him, I was like,
Yeah.
really? Like I can't believe this. But then it was like I saw an interview and he was like talking about how much he loved Ron Dennis, and I liked Ron Dennis, and I just loved the crazy shit that he would say. So I was like, okay, like if he gets along well and like Ron Dennis hired him, this guy kind of knows what he's doing. And yeah, he's proven it through and through. Like that's a guy
Yeah.
who's like learned and seen it, and like and to his credit, he knows when to kind of step aside and hand off things to other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he just has
So
that mentality of like, I know this has never worked in the past,
right,
but I'm gonna make it work.
but
Because
we're
I'm
gonna
Zach Brown
try. Right,
and I don't give a shit. Yeah. He's like,
right.
I don't care. I'm here off of Wheel of Fortune. Like, fucking, we're gonna do this.
I do love that, and it cracks me up too because I know like a lot of the European base probably they're like, oh, this stupid redneck, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like what's that line from Talladega Nights? He's like, damn it, boy, I wish you had more dumb cowboy in you, or something like that. Like,
Yep.
so yeah, it's
Well,
I yeah,
yeah.
and once again, just back to it. great season opener. The fact,
Yeah.
dude, we never have this much shit to talk about after a season opener.
Yeah. So good. We know absolutely nothing. We're no smarter.
Yeah.
We've learned nothing. So, in that light, what do you think about China? What's predictions? What do you think that race is going to tell us? Where are we going from here?
Um, I wonder how many mechanics get sick because of the food. I, I, I really am curious to see um this whole technical directive that they're putting out with like the wings.
Yeah, the mini DRS. I actually had that pulled up
Yeah,
on Gram.
I've seen a lot of video and it
That
seems
could
like
put a
it's
little
not.
damper in McLaren.
Well, actually, I just saw a video. I mean, who knows? It's probably some British fanboy, like, and I'm like, yeah, McLaren. But I didn't. What they? I don't know exactly the part that they're looking at on the wing. But the point being is
Yeah.
like they had kind of like the lines drawn. I don't know if it's necessarily going to affect them as much. Now, if they are
So
3 seconds off the pace or they're down 3/10 rather per lap, we know that that is
yeah,
exactly who it's
exactly.
targeting. So
Yeah, and some of
I'd laugh
those
my ass off if it really hits Ferrari the
that would
hardest.
be hilarious. So they must have an opening that is less than half of a millimeter starting from Japan, with an exception of 0.25 at the Chinese Grand Prix. So
So it's
they're
slowly
kind of
just like
easing it into it.
right.
Um, what was the max before?
Was it
I think the max
points?
before was like 3 mil or something like that. It was a little, quite a bit bigger, which is still very small. Talking about half of a millimeter versus 3 millimeters. That's a tiny difference, but on an F1 car, that's a huge difference.
The, right.
So it's nuts. But yeah, we'll see what that does. Even if it seems like the McLarens are, they've got Red Bull 2023, RB21 kind of written all over them right now. They seem very dominant. But if
Yeah.
that backs them
And
up a little bit, I don't think it'll back them up out of the lead, but it might back them into Max's reach a little bit more.
that one will be interesting too because they have that long straight.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that'll also kind of really that'll actually I think maybe expose who it's really hurting a lot.
Yeah.
You look at the straights there's a fair amount of straights there in Australia. You look at this one, this will really show who's like kind of that was directed at.
Yeah.
Um, I think China's always a pretty good racetrack actually. That first like seashell kind of like turn one is like really wild, and I think like that could always create some pretty good chaos. Um, that was where Seb affectionately labeled Kvyat the torpedo because he just torpedoed into him basically. Um, so I kind of think like we could see a lot of like first lap shenanigans.
Yeah.
Um, I I'm really hopeful that like Lawson kind of can have just like a good clean race, and a lot of those like rookies can kind of find their feet. And man, if Ferrari sucks again, like
Yeah. I think we're going to get more of a first race. Like it's going to be a little more normal. I think it'll give us a little bit better insight of who's actually where.
yeah,
You know, rookies will probably tame themselves down a little bit, get on their feet. From what I've seen, I wouldn't be surprised if Ferrari stays where they're at. So I think it'll just be a little bit more normal, which it's pretty low hanging fruit to make that assumption. Raining in Melbourne first race versus this, but
yeah,
I still don't think we're going to know a whole lot about the season coming out of this race at all. I don't think we'll start to see a trend shape until race 5 or 6, really.
yeah.
Um,
Well, where do they go to after that? After China,
shit, I don't know.
Japan? Oh, they go to Japan.
Japan.
That'll
Well,
be
that makes sense because of the DRS rule.
yeah, yeah. That'll
So,
be sweet though. Well,
yeah,
and that one, especially Japan, that one's gonna be that's like a really good test, especially actually of like kind of the best like well-rounded car because they
yeah,
with it being like that test track, it's like you have to have and this China actually is too. It's like kind of from what I've read, like even though it has that long straight, because all the corners you have to have like a lot of really good balanced downforce. So it's kind of like a mid, like you can't go light on the downforce, but you also can't go super heavy. So it's like I think it'll expose like who actually has like a decent car, and same with
Yeah.
Japan. So it's
Yep.
like this these will be two. Oh, and then they go to Bahrain after that. So it's like these next few races, it's really I think going to show how the season's going to go, and if
Yeah.
um yeah if so, I guess I would really double down on that. If Ferrari struggles here, I
It's gonna be
and
rough.
yeah, I mean anyone really like
Yeah.
if you're struggling, then you're basically at that point hoping for chaotic races to get good points
Yeah.
hauls.
Yep. I agree. Yeah, this is a totally random, not even within the sport side note. But I'll send you this clip today. In MotoGPs, Mark Marquez is back on factory Ducati,
Oh yeah.
and he's done the triple sweep every single weekend so far. Pole position, sprint winner, and GP winner. This is back to old Marquez style, and his brother's been second. But there was a clip of him coming into a corner. You know, on MotoGP bikes, when they get on the brakes hard, it usually lifts the back wheel up a little, and they've got their leg hanging off. The
Yes.
bike, when he gets on the brakes, it like counters with the rear. The engine braking counters the rear end down too, so it squashes the front and then squats the rear. So it squats the entire bike, and his rear end just stays planted to the ground, and he can just mash the brake as hard as he wants, and then
Oh,
trail brake off the rear and let it and like kind of ease off the engine braking and just use the trail braking and get to the technology to do that on a motorcycle is insane, insane. And
that's
he
amazing.
just blew by Alex Marquez coming into the corner because in the braking, Alex, you can kind of see him getting on the brakes, the rear wheel starting to kind of come off the ground, and Mark was just like, holy crap.
See, and I wish they could add some. I don't know what that'd be. Something like that where it's like the driver talent is coming through that much more in F1, because you
Yeah.
do watch like the moto guys and it's just like it's unmistakable. You're
Yeah.
like, well, that guy's just clearly better.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
That
Yeah,
was
send me
nuts.
that though, by the way.
Yeah,
Yes,
I'll send
definitely
you that
do.
clip. Johnny Hopper ripped it off of another guy as he usually does, but
Nice.
so I know it's on his page. I saw it on some guy that like actually follows MotoGP, and then Johnny Hopper picked the exact same clip and said verbatim the same thing. I'm like, really, dude? Whatever.
Like
Hopper's got
this ain't AI doing this. This is you. Like
yeah,
so.
exactly. Cool, dude. But yeah, sweet. Yeah, we'll see what China brings. I'm glad the season's back.
Yeah.
Waste my Sundays away again.
Well, and it's funny too to like go back because I did end up staying up to watch the race in Australia,
Yeah.
and oh man, I was suffering on Sunday. And my girlfriend's like, "You're too old to do this," and I'm like, I know, I know, I
Yeah.
still did it. So
Yeah, dude, I can't. Baby was having a hard time going to sleep, so I was like trying to get her down. I didn't get her down to like 10:30, 10:45, and I'm like, "Ooh, I'm still awake." But I've also drank some NyQuil.
yeah,
There's no way I'm making it through this race. So,
things are working against me here.
so like in true old man fashion, I'm gonna go to bed now and wake up early to watch it. So,
It's a better life. I
but I got
know.
to get up early before I have a chance to get on Instagram and ruin it.
Dude, I'm still young enough to do that, but not. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I remember it was like, oh man, it was like one of those years I was in Denver for school, and it was, I think it was either also no, it was China, and I remember specifically because I went out, was getting drinks because it was the weekend, and it wasn't like a drink, it was like some proper drinks.
Yeah.
And I like my phone goes and it's like, hey, like F1 popping on, and I'm like, oh sweet. And I remember I like get home and I tweet out, I'm like, love these Asian races, because I'm like, they're on late. I get to have some beers in me and I get to watch this race. And I remember all these people are like, what are you talking about there? And I'm like,
Race
What do you?
car races.
Yeah, exactly. At like 11:30 at
Oops.
night on I think on a Saturday, everyone's like, "Really, Colin?"
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny. Cool.
All
Well,
right,
we'll be back for the next one.
we love those races.